March 21st, 2016, Monday of Holy Week.
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one with whom I am pleased, upon whom I have put my spirit. He shall bring forth justice to the nations, not crying out, not shouting, not making his voice heard in the street. A bruised reed he shall not break, and a smoldering wick he shall not quench. Until he establishes justice on the earth, the coastlands will wait for his teaching. Thus says God the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spreads out the earth with its crops, who gives breath to its people, and spirit to those who walk on it. I, the Lord, have called you for the victory of justice. I have grasped you by the hand. I formed you and set you as a covenant of the people, a light for the nations, to open the eyes of the blind, to bring out prisoners from confinement, and from the dungeon those who live in darkness. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is my life's refuge. Of whom should I be afraid? The Lord is my light and my salvation. When evildoers come at me to devour my flesh, my foes and my enemies themselves stumble and fall. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Though an army encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war be waged upon me, even then will I trust. The Lord is my light and my salvation. I believe that I shall see the bounty of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord with courage. Be stout-hearted and wait for the Lord. The Lord is my light and my salvation.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. 6 days before Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. They gave a dinner for him there, and Martha served, while Lazarus was one of those reclining at table with him. Mary took a liter of costly perfumed oil, made from genuine aromatic nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus and dried them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. Then Judas the Iscariot, one of his disciples, and the one who would betray him, said, "Why was this oil not sold for 300 days' wages and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief and held the money bag and used to steal the contributions. So Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Let her keep this for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me." The large crowd of the Jews found out that he was there and came, not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. And the chief priests plotted to kill Lazarus too, because many of the Jews were turning away and believing in Jesus because of him. The Gospel of the Lord.
March 21st, Monday of Holy Week. The first reading is from Isaiah 42, 1-7. This is the first of the songs of the suffering servant, those 4 songs about a mysterious figure in Deutero-Isaiah. When they asked Jewish sages who these songs refer to, They didn't have an answer. Some said Israel, some said the prophet. Jesus is the one who applied them to himself. Whenever he spoke about his mission as the Son of Man, he always incorporated vocabulary taken from these songs. The fact that he would be handed over, the fact that he'd be betrayed, etc. This one speaks about a very meek servant who doesn't raise his voice, but nevertheless brings justice to the land. He brings justice by surrender, by humility, as opposed to violence and power. And in fact, the justice is not only to come to Israel, but also to the nations. Now that's remarkable that the author of these poems would write about justice coming to the nations, because Israel at this time was living in exile. They were living in Babylon. Why would Yahweh deliver the nations? But this is the tendency towards universalism in the faith of Israel, that Yahweh, if he's the only God, is the God of all nations, and therefore he cares about all peoples. He will liberate, he will open the eyes of the blind, free those who are in darkness and in prison. This is what Jesus' role is. And in fact, as we read these 4 poems, it's remarkable how well they apply to Jesus. It's easy to forget that the poems were written sometime around 580 BC, 570 BC, and not at the time of Jesus or after Jesus. The Gospel is from John 12, 1 to 11. This is the story of the anointing of the feet of Jesus by Mary. Mary is the sister of Martha and Lazarus. This is not the woman caught in adultery. This is not Mary Magdalene. This is Mary, sister of Martha and Lazarus, who anoints Jesus' feet with pure nard. Now, nard is incredibly expensive. It grows in only one place in the world, in the Himalaya mountains. This would be an incredible gesture. In fact, Judas says this could have been sold for 300 denarii. A denarius is a day's wage. This is a whole year's salary just being used to anoint the feet of Jesus. It's an extravagant gesture. But Mary loves Jesus. And when we love people, we do extravagant things. That's exactly what happens here. In fact, we know about that love because the only place that the word nard appears in the Old Testament is in the Song of Songs. That beautiful poem about the love between a husband and a wife. And in fact, the phrase that the fragrance fill the house is robbed right from the Song of Songs. The author of this account is purposely making allusions to the Song of Songs to let us know what this action really means. Now, Judas wanted to sell the nard, partly because he's a thief, but partly also because he wants to do charity. He could have opened a soup kitchen with the 300 denarii. And Jesus is saying, Mary is loving the person in front of her, not doing charity. Very often, when we do charity, we manipulate others so that we feel better about ourselves. All those people who run to the soup kitchens on Thanksgiving Day, but then forget to help them the rest of the year. Jesus has asked us to love the people in front of us. This is very much what Mother Teresa of Calcutta always tried to do. She never accepted government funding because she didn't want to be a social worker. She wanted to be a person who loved the unlovable. And that's what Mary has done. She has loved Jesus, and that's the example of what we should do. That our discipleship is not a question of doing certain things. It's a question of falling in love with Christ, who died out of love for us. And may God bless us.